After her release from prison, a former thief re-enters the heist world under her former gang leader, leading to her ex-partner's downfall and a surprising partnership with a Russian kingpin. In a parked car on the side of the road, two goons, Benny and Carl, wait for their cue to carry out a task given to them by a syndicate lord. Suddenly, from a distance, they spot their target Rosalie handing a lunchbox to her warden husband, Dwight Tucker, who is about to leave for work. Shortly after the watchman drives off, the armed men infiltrate the apartment to abduct the woman. However, when Carl enters the bathroom, he surprisingly finds Felix, a jiu-jitsu instructor with whom their subject has been having an affair. In a defensive move, the martial arts master punches the gangster. Soon after, he takes the unconscious man's handgun and aims at Benny, who shoots him first. Afterward, the armed man immediately calls his boss to inform him about what happened and that their target is safe. 2 weeks ago, ex-thief and single mom Daisy Jett Kowalski returned home and greeted Maria, her Spanish companion who was about to leave for an appointment. Shortly after washing her face, the woman headed to her bedroom and shockingly found two armed men. Taggart threatened they would harm her daughter and maid if she didn't comply with their request. It turned out that the goons wanted the ex-thief to entice and cuff the crime boss so they could talk to him. To make her comply, the gangsters assured the woman that she could walk away safely after fulfilling their request. When asked if the single mom had something else to say, she corrected them and said that Maria was not her maid. Dressed elegantly, Jett arrived at the hotel to execute the plan. While the former master thief conversed with the syndicate lord Charlie Baudelaire, the two gangsters entered the hotel. However, on their way to their target's room, the mob leader's non-heterosexual son, Charlie Jr., eliminated the goons and informed his dad about it. Afterward, the kingpin thanked Jett for advising them about the attack and paid her a generous amount. The woman then descended to the hotel lobby to leave the establishment. Just before she exited the hotel, she ran into an old colleague and an ex-undercover cop, Jackie. They caught up with each other's lives. After the woman shared that she had been out of prison 4 months ago, the man disclosed that he was already married but was with a colleague named Josie, with whom he had been having an affair. Following this, Jackie and his co-worker spent an intimate moment in the hotel room. While enjoying their private moment, he shared how much he owed his life to Jett. The former spy narrated that 10 years ago, he met Jett when he infiltrated the organization of the notorious kingpin Frank Sweeney. Back then, the boss accused the thief of being a traitor in their group. He ordered Blair to shoot the woman with an unloaded weapon to make her confess. When it didn't work, the drug lord handed the pistol to Murphy to do the same thing. However, just before the gangster could shoot her, Jett implied that her colleague leaked them, prompting Frank to eliminate the guy instead. Following this, the kingpin summoned Jackie, who was Denon at the time, and asked him to help the thief clean up. However, she knew that the undercover cop was the true traitor and not the fallen man. The woman suggested he leave the place for safety and never see her again. After his intimate bond with Josie, the ex-secret agent shared with her that he still ran into Jett a few times after their encounter. However, he took her advice and quit his job as an undercover cop, and the kingpin, Frank, eventually became paralyzed. That night, the single mom tucked her daughter Alice into bed. Before she closed the door, her inquisitive daughter worried about Maria, who had been acting off lately. However, the ex-thief assured her their companion had already seen the doctor. Suddenly, the two gangsters Junior had eliminated in the hotel suite turned out to be alive. When the armed men stopped outside Jett's house, the ex-thief sensed their presence and threatened them with her weapon. Then she brought them to Charles to get an explanation. The kingpin then revealed that the goons worked under his son, and he had employed them to test Jett's loyalty to him. Pissed off, the former thief dropped her weapon and left the hotel suite, disregarding the boss's proposition for her. The following day, Charles sent the single mom flowers and a note while she was watching Alice in the playground. As a result of the gesture, Jett agreed to meet with a gang lord to discuss his job for her. As they walked through the golf field, the kingpin apologized and explained that he had to test her loyalty to ensure she was still on his side despite being imprisoned. While she got the boss's point, the ex-thief wondered why the two men had to follow her after the task, prompting the man to imply that it wasn't his order but his son's. Shortly after, Jett hesitated to take the job, claiming that she already quit doing illegal activities. However, Charlie pointed out that she only got caught, implying that she could still do what she was good at. He then enticed her with the task's reward, mentioning that she'd earn enough money to retire. The kingpin then explained that he wanted her to steal a ring from a Russian mob boss's safe in Cuba and replace it with a replica. He also pointed out that he wished the thief to go alone, believing it was the right strategy for their plan. That night, Jett called Charlie and disclosed she needed to execute the task with a former partner and a good safecracker, but he was in jail. Upon hearing this, the kingpin tasked his men to help the inmate get out. In the present, Dwight Tucker receives a call from Benny, who threatens him to release prisoner Quinn in exchange for his wife Rosalie. The gangster tells the warden that he'll torture the woman if he doesn't comply. After the call, the armed man comforts the sobbing target, pointing out that he used such statements to scare the watchman. Following the order, Dwight picks up Quinn from his cell and provides him with officer clothes and a fake ID so they can drive past the security. The following morning, a masked Benny brings Rosalie to the location in preparation for the warden's arrival with the inmate. Meanwhile, Carl poses as a sniper in case the watchman harms them. After the exchange, the gunman immediately shoots Dwight's tires and escapes with his colleague and Quinn. Following this, Benny brings the released prisoner to a rented room with a safe for him to practice. Shortly after, Junior visits him to give him his passport details and the photo of the Russian kingpin, Miljan Bestich. Later, Jett arrives and they spend an intimate time together before discussing the job's details. After their private bonding, Quinn unlocks the safe under 7 minutes in preparation for his safe-cracking job. Then, he and the thief discuss their plan to steal the gang lord's extravagant ring. Upon their arrival in Havana, Cuba, the couple spends their first day having a romantic time together. The following night, they eat dinner at the restaurant where Miljan is. Officially starting their plan, the gorgeous thief, who pretends to be an actress named Maggie, walks past the kingpin's area to get his attention, prompting him to follow her to the bar. Shortly after getting acquainted with a fake performer, Miljan offers her and Quinn, who's acting as a writer named William, some drinks. Suddenly, the safecracker stands up and excuses himself so he can go to bed, leaving the woman alone with a mob boss. After bonding with their target, Jett informs her colleague that she will have dinner with a gang lord at a family restaurant the next day. The following night, the thief dines with Miljan and then asks him to take her to his mansion. There, she analyzes the entry points, guard positions, and lights. When she returns to the hotel, she informs Quinn about his strategy to get to the safe behind a painting inside the Russian gang lord's bedroom. After studying the plan, the safecracker requests that the woman turn off the garden lights while he sneaks inside the mansion. He adds that Miljan should be out of his bedroom for 7 minutes so he can open the safe. The following day, Jett arrives at their target's luxurious home. While she bonds with the Russian kingpin, Quinn positions himself outside the dimly lit side of the area and climbs the barrier to enter the mansion's yard. While alluring Miljan in the kitchen, the thief turns off the garden lights, enabling the safecracker to run toward the kitchen window and then to the main bedroom. Upon reaching the location, Quinn removes the painting and opens the safe behind it. While he unlocks the vault, he suddenly hears Jett and the gang lord approaching the hall, prompting him to stop temporarily. When Miljan insists on taking her to bed, the thief requests that they spend an intimate time somewhere else, allowing her colleague to continue the task. After successfully opening the safe, Quinn takes the ring and replaces it with a replica. However, upon further investigation, he finds a mysterious envelope containing photos of the Russian gang lord and Junior together, implying that they know each other. He also spots an image of their boss's son lying next to a blood-soaked, lifeless man, making him think they are photographs intended for blackmailing. Following this shocking discovery, the safecracker returns the contents to the safe and then escapes the mansion with the extravagant ring. The following morning, Jett returns to the hotel and encounters an anxious Quinn, who immediately invites her to leave the country. While in the taxi, the cracksman discloses Miljan and Junior's connection and the blackmail photos. However, just before he can reveal the details, armed men block their vehicle and abduct them. Following this, a restrained Jett realizes that Miljan ordered their abduction, revealing that he knew about their robbery. When the gang lord asks who she worked for, the thief lies, telling him that no one employed her. Annoyed by the response, the mob leader intimidates the woman by threatening to harm Quinn and her daughter Alice. Upon aiming his handgun at the cracksman, Jett pleads, telling him she'll let him know everything. When Miljan asks again who employed her, the restrained individual finally reveals announced that she worked for Charlie. However, the Russian kingpin informs her that her answer is wrong and ends the safecracker's life. Afterward, Miljan explains that he spared her because she's his new pet. The gang lord orders the thief to keep quiet about their encounter. He wants her to return home, collect the money from Charlie, and wait for his further instructions. Following this, he gives her the ring and asserts she works for him. Following her flight home, a traumatized Jett constantly thinks about Quinn's demise and her forced partnership with Miljan. The following day, she anxiously rehearses what to say to her boss about what happened in Havana. Upon her arrival at the hotel, the thief hands the ring to Charlie. When the gang lord asks where Quinn is, the woman lies, telling him that the safecracker stayed in Mexico. Shortly after, he promises her that she'll receive her payment by the end of the week. The following morning, Jett wakes up and sees Maria in the kitchen, who informs her that a guy is waiting outside for her. The thief then approaches the stranger, who introduces himself as Evans, one of Miljan's men. The handler invites her to a meeting with a few people about the Russian kingpin's job for them. Meanwhile, Dwight Tucker joins a support group session and shares that he got fired from his warden job because he helped Quinn get out to save his wife. He adds that when he found out his wife was unfaithful, he smoked a pipe and eventually hit her. As a result, his spouse moved out of the home. Unbeknownst to the speaker, one of his listeners is Benny, who gave him the illicit task that ruined his life. That night, Jett visits Jackie in the hotel and learns that her former colleague is working to get Charles Jr. behind bars. To get revenge for Quinn's passing, the thief offers her help to take her boss's son down. Meanwhile, Jr. has a party with his male guests in his huge house. Suddenly, Judge Prosky, who has been handling his father's case, arrives upon his invitation. The gang lord's son then gives the court official full payment for his services. However, the skeptical professional refuses, implying that they do the transaction where there are no cameras. As the guest exits the house, Jr. notices that Bobby is taking illegal substances in the bathroom, accusing him of eavesdropping. He then tells him to stay where he is because he'll return for him. Before getting inside his car, Prosky reminds his client's son that if something terrible happens to him, another person will handle his dad's case and possibly nail him. To reassure the man that he didn't do anything to the vehicle, Jr. turns the engine on himself, prompting the court official to get on the seat and drive off. Upon returning to the restroom, the kingpin's son assaults Bobby, fearful that he might expose his conversation with the judge. However, the man insists on proving his trustworthiness by pleasuring him. Shortly after, Jr. checks his phone to track Prosky's location. Suddenly, the professional's engine turns off in the middle of the road. As the court official tries to turn it back on, the kingpin's son pushes a button on his mobile device, triggering the explosive under the vehicle. Meanwhile, Jett meets Charlie at a lavish restaurant to get her payment. Before they eat, the kingpin shares his idea that his son likes the same gender because he wants to dominate someone or just plainly annoy him. Suddenly, Benny interrupts their discussion and informs his boss to take an important call. Following this, the disappointed kingpin shares with the thief that his judge had an untimely demise. When Jett asks who did it, Charlie suspects a Mexican named Jacinto Salas. Shortly after, the boss excuses himself and promises her that Benny will deliver the payment to her house. Upon encashing her check, the single mom counts the total bucks by lining them on her bed. While doing so, Alice enters the room and asks about God, prompting her to answer that the omnipotent being is different for everyone. Meanwhile, a concerned Benny follows Rosalie after attending the group session. When Carl asks if his colleague wants to get in her pants, the man shares that he just wants to ensure the warden's wife is doing okay. Concurrently, Jett arrives at the meeting and takes a photo of the vehicle's plate numbers outside the location. Upon knocking on the door, she meets Evans, who introduces her to Wayne and Octavio, her new co-workers. Surprisingly, she finds her ex-colleague Blair among the group. As the discussion starts, the handler shares the details of the job. Their task is to steal from a cash-loaded vault inside the manager's office of a poker site. When Blair inquires about the area's security, Evan discloses that there are doormen, cameras, alarms, and 2 exit points. Upon hearing this, Jett walks out of the discussion, informing them that she doesn't like the task. The handler then follows the woman outside and invalidates her opinion. He then reminds her to focus on getting the job done. However, she explains that the location is close to her home and refuses to join join them. However, Evan insists that he needs her leadership, ordering her to devise a strategy for the heist. Following the handler's command, Jett returns to the meeting room and proposes that they hire a courtesan to distract the site manager. Instead of dealing with the security, they can threaten the executive and force him to open the vault for them. Later that day, Jett goes to Alice's school where she learns from her daughter's teacher that her child has been getting into fights because of God. The instructor informs her that the student brought up Maria's sickness, prompting the thief to say that her home companion's terminal condition has returned. When the teacher asks if Alice knew her father, Jett discloses that her daughter's dad is gone. When the single mom promises her that she'll talk to her child, the instructor suggests they see a psychologist to assess the student's condition better. Following this, Jett meets up with Jackie and Josie, informing them that Charlie is going to war with Jacinto Salas due to his judge's sudden demise. Upon hearing the name, the ex-undercover cop reveals that the suspect is involved with the Matrices cartel and has been importing and exporting illegal substances and people. He suspects the Mexican boss planned to eliminate Prosky to protect his interests. Suddenly, the other cop asks the thief why she doesn't want to take matters into her own hands and eliminate Junior. In response, the single mom asserts that she'll do her method. She'll feed them information about the kingpin's son so they can put him away. Before the day of the heist, Jett and Blair examine the poker site, where they see the manager, Joe Garson, in person. Upon reaching the second floor, the thief discreetly takes a photo of the camera near the manager's office. Afterward, Jett goes to a nightclub and coordinates with Neil to find a European courtesan for the poker site executive as a distraction. The hired woman named Phoenix then meets the manager. While they spend intimate time together, the thief and her colleagues interrupt their moment and restrain the couple. Then they release them into the woods, where Jett throws the courtesan into an empty grave and ends her life before the petrified Garson. Following this, the thief threatens the manager with her handgun and orders him to obey her instructions for his safety. She orients him that in a few days, the thieves will arrive, and all he has to do is lead them to his office and open the safe for them. Scared for his life, the executive agrees to the command. After her colleagues drive off with Garson, Jett helps Phoenix get off the empty grave, revealing that they just did the act to intimidate the manager. Then she paid the woman, whom she already knew before the job, and dropped her home. The following day, Jett accompanies Maria to the hospital. As the thief watches her companion go through the body scanner, she recalls meeting her for the first time 7 years ago at a family hotel. When she discovered her pregnancy, she was living next door to her. They shared a drink one night, and the Spanish woman shared her life story. Her dad had passed due to murderous intentions when she was 16, and the grief made her mom mentally ill. To escape, she rode on a boy's motorcycle and eventually found a job as a cook on a transatlantic ship. Maria also shared her desire to have a family, but she was unable to because she has a rare health condition prohibiting her from having children. She also mentioned that doctors informed her that she had 1 year to live. On the day of the heist, Jett orients her team about their strategy. She points out that they don't need to use bullets. While she and Blair work on getting the money and surveillance camera, Wayne and Octavio will deal with crowd control and taking care of the manager's office's doorman. To prevent the arrival of cops to the area, just in case the alarms notify them, the driver explains that they'll use a vehicle to block the policemen's garages. When they arrive at the poker site, Jett meets Garson, who brings her to the vault's location. As he opens the vault, the thief disrupts the surveillance monitor. Seconds later, Blair enters the room and puts the money and gold bars into the bag. After tying up the manager, the woman joins and helps her colleague. After getting all the vault's contents, Jett exits the door with her bag but suddenly hears a gunshot, prompting her to return to the office. When she sees the lifeless manager on the ground, she turns to Blair, who pulls his weapon's trigger in her direction.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.